Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs, and as you can see, I'm not in the Joe Blog studio. I'm actually in sunny Spain. You can see I've got the pool behind me there. It's blue skies, absolutely fantastic weather. And in this video, I wanted to answer a question that I've been asked a lot since I've been posting videos on YouTube, and I've been posting regularly for more than 3 years now, so this is probably quite overdue. Who is Joe Blogs? Who are you? Why are you posting videos on YouTube? And why should I listen to anything that you've got to say? Which I think are all fairly valid questions. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't put a bio onto my profile is because I wanted to let the videos talk for themselves, because I've seen so many channels where people big themselves up. They tell you about all the qualifications that they have, all the fantastic things that they've done in their life, and then you watch the videos and you think, I'm not convinced that that's really translating into the quality of the videos. So I wanted to make videos that basically stood alone, that if you watched it, you could buy into it or not buy into it. You didn't have to believe it just because you'd read that I was an expert in X, Y, Z. And so far, so good. We've built up more than 400,000 subscribers. And if you're watching this video and you're not a subscriber, then please hit that subscriber button, because for most of my videos, the majority of people who are watching them are not actually subscribed. If everybody that watched my videos subscribed, I'd have more than 1 million subscribers. That would be fantastic. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. So as I said, I didn't want to just post a long bio to try to gather followers. I wanted to do it through the actual quality of the videos, and I think that's working quite well. But I think it's a valid question to say, well, what's your background? Why are you talking about these things? Well, if you didn't know already, I'm English, so I came from the northwest of England, so a lot of people think that I'm Australian or American or somewhere else, but I'm not. I'm English, and I spent the first 20 years of my career working in the city in London in finance. So I was providing the finance for private equity buyouts. So these were multi-billion-dollar transactions, usually multi-jurisdictional, so companies that had operations in hundreds of different countries around the world that were being bought and sold for hundreds of millions, in some situations billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars. And as I went through the years, I got more and more senior, became head of a team, was running teams in Europe and across the world. And then I turned 40, and I've been doing that for 20 years. And I just had that moment of clarity where I thought, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Do I want to become one of those people who's just a career banker, just doing finance stuff, just lending money to people, getting paid bonuses, earning loads of money? And the answer to that quite clearly was no, I didn't want to do it. So I took the decision around about 15 years ago that I was going to do something else. So I then went on a period where I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and so I tried lots of different business ventures, and eventually I started helping companies to actually raise capital. So I was talking to a lot of small businesses, and they were struggling to be able to find investors. So I set up a company and a business whereby I was actually acting as the introducer to angels, bringing in investors. And that went really well, and that was quite exciting for a while. But it wasn't really exciting enough. It felt like I was sort of drifting back into the world of finance and just doing things for the sake of it. And so I wanted to do something that was purely entrepreneurial. It was really just me. What was it that I could bring to the party? What could I say and do to actually change the world? So I decided I wanted to set up a YouTube channel. I'd seen lots of different people in the news, in the financial press, and it was reported that Mr. Beast had made $30 million a year from his YouTube channel, and there was some kid in the USA who was basically opening toys who'd made $26 million, and some girl in Russia, Anastasia I think her name was, she was making $30 million just by documenting her life. And then there were all these guys gaming and pranking and doing lots of crazy stuff and getting lots of followers, getting lots of views and making lots of money. And I thought, how did these guys find themselves in that position? What qualifications did they have when they came to this party? And the main qualification that they had was a desire to actually make those videos. That was what they wanted to do. If you watch Mr. Beast, he made some videos right at the start of his journey where he only had like 20 subscribers or something, and he was saying, in 5 years' time, I'd like to have 1 million subscribers, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that. And obviously, he's followed through on that because he was committed to doing it. So I decided that I wanted to go for the challenge of setting up a YouTube channel. And at that point, it was a big challenge because I had zero social media presence. Wasn't on Facebook, wasn't on Instagram, not on TikTok, not on anything basically. So I was coming from a standing start. So I decided that I didn't want to leverage up on my previous relationship. I didn't want to go around asking everybody to please subscribe to my channel and then build up a series of subscribers who weren't really interested in what I was doing. I wanted to just go alone. So I experimented with a few different types of things. You may have seen some of the old videos. There's a classic one on one of the other channels that I set up recently of me making a cup of tea, which I think is probably the most ludicrous thing that anybody has ever made a video about on YouTube. I thought that it would be a huge success in China. It wasn't. But it was really a process of learning how to make videos, how to actually think about the start, the middle and the end, what I was going to put in those videos, how I was going to structure them, how I was going to make them interesting to watch. So like any career, like anything that you get into, you have to start somewhere and you have to build up your skill base and your knowledge and sort of trial and error and see what works and see what doesn't work. And at that point, I was running a property development business. So I was buying old houses and I was renovating and extending and making them a lot more exciting, a lot more modern. And so I decided to start documenting that process. So I made a variety of different videos just talking through what was happening and why it was happening and explaining to people what was going on. And the reason why I did that was because I was trying to find those videos myself on YouTube. I was going through this process and I wanted to know how to install a boiler, how to install radiators, what insulation you needed, what you needed to do in terms of building an extension, how you put the steels in, what they were meant to do, how much support was needed, all of those sort of very basic things. And I couldn't really find anything that was explaining to me in really easy to understand language how to do it. So I started to make those videos instead, and they started getting some views. And if you've seen the channel, you'll know that I still have those property videos on here and they still get views every single day. Quite often they're in my top 10 videos. So they've got longevity, they've got an evergreen quality about them. And I think the reason why is because I've explained to people what's going on. And I think when I look back on my career, one of the reasons why I was successful in finance was because I hate jargon. I hate people bamboozling you with technical words and just trying to gloss over stuff so it makes it sound really complicated. I hate all of that. So when I was in finance, I always challenged people. If they used jargon, if they came up with some acronym, they said PDA or whatever it might be, I would always say, hey, stop there. What does that mean? Explain it to me. And most of the time they knew, quite a lot of the time they didn't. They would say, well, I don't actually know what it stands for, but it's sort of, I think it means this. And so I was pulling people up and basically stopping people from using jargon, stopping people who would say, it's a bit too complicated, I can't really explain it to you. Well, that means that they don't know what they're talking about, basically. So I was always very good at getting to the detail, finding out what was going on. And I think my key skill set, which was one of the reasons why I was successful in my finance career, was I was really good at explaining things to people in very easy to understand language. So I would go through a huge report that may be quite detailed and have lots of data and information in it. I would filtrate out the useful parts of that report, and then I would report it to whoever was in my team. In the early days, it would be my boss, and then as it got later on, it would just be to clients or somebody I was pitching to, and just pick out the 2 or 3 salient points from maybe a 500-page report saying, these are the critical issues, this is what we need to get to the bottom of. And everybody really liked that approach. So I've taken that form of analysis and I've brought it to YouTube. And after I was making all of the property videos, I wanted to get away from that because I didn't just want to have a property documentation channel where I was just documenting what was happening, because the property side of things wasn't really very exciting for me. I wanted to move away from that. And so I started having a look at what was going on geopolitically. And at that time, there was a lot happening in China with Evergrande, which was the most indebted company in the world at that point, had over $300 billion worth of debt. And so I looked into what was happening, and it was in financial difficulty, but I couldn't really find out why. It wasn't very easy when I looked through all of the press reports to find out what was going on. How did Evergrande get itself into that position? How did it borrow $300 billion? And why was it on the verge of going bust? So I made a video. I worked out all the details, spent a lot of time going through lots of different reports, and then I made a video talking about it, just saying this is what's happening with Evergrande. If you're interested, it's got all this debt. This is what's happened in the Chinese property market last 20 years, and the authorities have now pulled the plug, and so they're struggling. They've missed all the 3 red lines. They've breached all their covenants. And so I explained it in really easy to understand language to people who basically didn't have a financial background, but were interested in knowing what was happening. And then the other thing that I wanted to do was link what was happening in China to what's happening in your life. So I'd talk about the fact that if Evergrande went bust, that would mean that the $300 billion of debt, the holders of that would lose money. And some of those holders would be American institutions, American funds. Some of those funds may be pension funds. They may have invested some of your 401k pension into that company. So therefore, you might be losing money. So I was trying to link it back to talk about why the global economy is interlinked and why something happening in China can have an impact across the whole of the world. And so that started to go quite well. And that's basically the start of this channel. And I built it up from there. I obviously talked about lots of other different institutions. But the essence of what I'm trying to achieve is to basically give you information, give you data, but also talk about what's going on, why it's happening, and why that could have an impact on your everyday life, whether it be inflation or jobs or just the economy or whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter. So that's basically how I got from where I started to where I am today. I started off as a career in finance, did okay, did 20 years, and various lenders, lending money, hundreds of billions of dollars to lots of different companies. Decided that that wasn't the end game for me. I didn't just want to become a fat cat banker. Wasn't really that exciting for me. I got a bit bored, wanted to challenge myself. I thought, we've only got one life, and I don't want to go through life just being an employee. I would like to fend for myself. And it is quite a scary thing. And if you're in that position at the moment, maybe you've been an employee for a long time, maybe you're thinking about a new challenge, some sort of doing things differently, then you should sit down and just look at all of those options. Now, obviously, I'm not recommending to anybody to put yourself into financial difficulty. So I'd worked out all of my numbers and decided that at that point, I could probably have survived for 4 or 5 years without, any serious income. So I had the opportunity to try a few things, to do some different stuff. And as it worked out, some of those things went okay, they went quite well. So that worked out fine for me. And what I love about where I am now is that I don't have anybody to report to, obviously apart from you guys who are watching these videos, but I don't have a boss. And I'd got to the point in my life, in my career, where I didn't listen. I wasn't respectful of any of my bosses because I thought that I was better than them in terms of my knowledge was better, my way of going about dealing with people was better, my basically handling of staff and clients and business was better. And so I had these people who were telling me what to do, telling me what I needed to do, how I needed to go about things. I thought, I don't really want you telling me what I should be doing because I think I know what I'm doing and what you're telling me isn't actually right. So at that point, I decided that I could no longer be an employee because I'd lost the respect of everybody that I was reporting to. And I think if you get to that stage, the alarm bell is ringing that you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to go out on your own because when you're on your own, it is quite scary because you've obviously got no safety net. You don't have any, there's no company around you. You haven't got any salary coming in each month. You have to fend for yourself. If you don't do something, if you don't go about making something, making some profit, then you're not going to get paid. So all of that is quite scary. But the trade-off is that you don't have anybody to report to. You don't have any staff appraisals. You don't have to worry about all of your staff who and I'm talking about staff beneath you who are whinging all of the time and saying that they need to be paid more and things aren't fair and it's too hard and all of those sort of things. And so if you've got to that stage where you're looking up and thinking, I don't really like any of the people above me in this institution, and you're looking down and thinking, all the people below me are a drain on my time. You know, I could be doing more, but I'm having to do staff appraisals and set people's objectives and talk about sickness, holiday and pay and all sorts of benefits and all of that sort of thing. If you're sitting there thinking, I don't really like doing any of this, you know, none of this is productive for me, it's draining my energy and my time, then it might be time to have a think about doing something on your own. Now, what I'd recommend is that you try and do it alongside what you're doing right now. So if you can run the two in parallel, just as a bit of a trial run to see whether or not there's any mileage in doing something on your own. And then once it gets some traction and you think actually that might be feasible, that's the point when you can make a decision as to whether or not you want to walk away from employment and go out on your own. But anyway, that's the story of how I got here, how I got to making YouTube videos. What do I think about it? Well, it is a fantastic opportunity. I'll definitely recommend it to anybody that's thinking about a new challenge. And it doesn't have to be in replacement of your employment. It might be that you want to try it, you know, just as a sideline. You want to start making barbecue videos or talking about making woodwork or railway engines or who knows what. It doesn't really matter because there is an audience out there for virtually everything on YouTube. But from my point of view, what I like about it is it gives me the opportunity to continue learning, you know, I'm doing a lot of research, looking into things constantly, things that interest me, things that I would probably be interested in looking into, finding out more information about and talking about anyway, just down the pub. But I'm now bringing it to YouTube. I'm helping everybody else to fast forward their knowledge. That's really the way I see this channel. I see it as an easy way to get up to speed on what's happening in a variety of different areas. So whether it's Russia or China or Turkey or some other things that I'd like to talk about, I'd like to go into some of the details. And I will be expanding the content of the channel. I know that's always a bit controversial. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like this video, I'm unsubscribing immediately. Well, I don't really understand that approach because when I watch a channel, I don't watch every single video. You know, there will be videos that I think that one's really not for me, I'll just pass on that one. And because I'm posting so many, and I'm posting multiple videos per week, in some weeks I'm posting 7 or more videos a week, I know that's a lot of content to be watching, so I'm not expecting everybody to watch every single video. And that's why I think I'm going to mix up the content and maybe, you know, do some other stuff that, just to try it, just a trial, because like anything in life, you need to keep challenging yourself, you need to keep testing yourself, and you need to keep experimenting, doing something different. Because if you just do the same old thing at the same old time every day, every week, every month, every year, then life becomes quite dull, quite repetitive, and a bit depressing. So I want to mix things up and do things a bit more, you know, keep the excitement going, basically. So that's what I'm trying to do. So hopefully you've enjoyed hearing a little bit more about me. I'm currently on holiday in Spain. That basically brings you right up to speed in terms of what I'm doing right now. But hopefully this has given you a little bit more insight into me and how I got to be a YouTube channel person. It wasn't the design when I first decided to leave my career. I just wanted to be an entrepreneur and not have anybody reporting to, that I had to report to sort of tell whether I'd met my targets and all of that. I'd really got to the end of that. I'd become, I think, burnt out is the phrase, maybe, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I wanted to do something for myself. YouTube came along at the right time for me. I just got into this and I think it's going quite well. Hopefully you're enjoying it. So if you've enjoyed this video, if you've enjoyed hearing a bit more about Joe Bloggs, the person, then please give me that thumbs up. And thank you to everybody that's supporting me. If you've sent me a YouTube super thanks or bought me a coffee or signed up as a Patreon or a YouTube member or a Buy Me a Coffee member, thank you so much for all of that. And I'll see you again on the next video.